today, it's Chat GPT's birthday. November 30th, 2022, the day that changed everything. And you know, we thought we were so clever when we decided to throw this event on ChatGPT's birthday. We were going to do a whole big birthday theme, like balloons, cake, a bouncy castle, clowns. But then all the drama went down at OpenAI a couple weeks ago, and we realized a better theme would be a coup. So where's our CEO, Raphael? Raphael, you're going to want to sit down. I've been talking with Jeff and the board, and I have some bad news. Look at me. Look at me. I am the captain now. I'm just kidding. I see how hard he works. I don't want that job. And I'm probably definitely getting fired now. But no, seriously, the whole idea behind A.Team is bringing incredible builders together. We have this AI-powered team formation platform. We learn who works well with whom on what, but the magic is events like this, like builders like you, and how we can come together and fuse together the most innovative Silicon Valley product builders in the world with innovative people inside of startups, enterprise companies, mid-market companies that are transforming what they can build. And there's really no greater honor than getting to do events like this. As much as we hope you learn from all the speakers today on how you can build better with AI, use cases you can deploy, how to think about some of the security risks and the risks to your workforce. We also hope you learn from each other. So as we have breaks, network, connect with one another. That's really one of the biggest things you can get out of an event like this. And also if you're in the chat, right, be lively, find people to connect with there. Without further ado, I will bring up to the stage the man whose job I am definitely not taking, our founder and CEO, Raphael.
Thank you so much. Don't worry, Joe. Your job is absolutely safe. When you were rehearsing before, I didn't know that this joke was for real. I thought you were just messing up with the microphone, but turns out, why not? And it's a good thing because that means that we can all feel safe here. And in fact, this is part of what we like to do the most. Like, think about, this is not just the 1-year anniversary of ChatGPT. This is also a bit of a summary of 2023 and what a year this has been. If there's one thing that's clear is that this has been just a series of radical transformations and disruptions, some for the better and some maybe not. I was sitting in this very room very recently, sending a note to so many people affected by the war in Israel and the region, and sitting down and thinking, I've sent emails like that just a year and a half ago about Ukraine and a few months ago about a bank run that I never thought I would experience in my lifetime, like so many of us that were part of it, and so many more things that happened that we never thought would happen. I don't think it's a coincidence that everything is happening at once. When you think about the technology of generative AI, this is really more than a tech trend. It's an unbelievable acceleration. Think about it at the technology level. It's really about being able to extract intelligence out of unstructured data. Sounds like a small thing, maybe in some way it is, but what it also means is that we don't have to serve the machines as much. We can take in whatever we have, whatever data we generate, and make sense of it very quickly without having to put it together in a very orderly or rigid way. So we can ask broader questions. We can make things that look and feel like intelligence because we can do things that typically used to be exclusive to human beings, which is to think freely in an unstructured way in uncharted territories with new information as we collect it. So that brings us to unparalleled levels of acceleration that we're not used to. And that brings questions that are difficult and very important questions at every level of society, of laws, of how we build products, of responsibilities that we have as we build technologies, on how we run our businesses, on the future of our companies, and of course on our workforce, on, what do you tell your children that they should be focusing on in a world that's changing so quickly when we can barely tell what the future will look like given all these changes. So I don't think it's a coincidence that all of the changes, both at the economic level, the geopolitical level, and the technology level are operating at once. And we find ourselves very much in the middle of all of this. And the one thing that's very much critical to all of this, the only thing that we know how to do in this at this time is to bring the builders, the thinkers, the researchers, the policymakers, the people that represent every facet of making and building that future together, to bring them in a safe place to have conversations, to ask questions that may be challenging, to be open-minded. And I would like to set this intention for today, to get to know one another, to learn from each other, to be able to challenge our assumptions, and to build the rapport and the teams and the relationships that will help us navigate such tumultuous times. And when we look again, actually, it's kind of there's a lot of exciting things going on. We spent a whole year, like Joe said, it's been like the sixth event, right, that we're running. We've worked with hundreds of companies by now, from startups to Fortune 500, that have been experimenting and building with us, getting A-teams from fractional chief AI officers to development teams or product teams to experiment and build prototypes that they put in hands of users, to augmenting teams to bring AI capabilities and tooling into the operational team, business teams, marketing teams, and so forth, to explore how work was changing. And we are learning a lot. So today it is about sharing a lot of these learnings. I'm going to start here a little bit with a few examples. When we started A.Team, we felt this very strong desire that I think all of us kind of feel as a drive to team up with one another to build the things that matter to us. We felt this drive, like many, many of us, and we built a curated network of now 9,000 people at every level of seniority, spanning across 100 industries, that can come together and bring a diversity of skill set and approaches and perspective to solve difficult and important problems with technology, with products, but ultimately to solve user problems, to solve customer problems, to solve employee problems. And some of these applications that we're starting to see would not have been possible just 12 months ago. Like, in some theory, they would have been possible maybe, but it would cost too much, would have never gone to this. And now we can go into things like Fortune 100 hospital systems, healthcare system that's powering most hospitals in the US, and say, okay, how do we prevent the death of patients because of the challenge of passing on information from one nurse to the other when they go to bed and change their shifts, exhausted, and both sides, whoever is leaving and coming in, and save billions of dollars to an overstretched healthcare system. Or we could ask questions such as, how do you create digital avatars to automate and provide personalized information to people? Or how to build so many things across so many examples that we'll share throughout the day. And that's quite exciting. The dream, I think, early on, we realize has been to be in these rooms just like this, when you can tell that the future is being made. There's an example as of very much the past few days, working with this market intelligence company, which produces data, proprietary data, right? It's what so many companies use in order to understand the market, how things are going, to make decisions about which service providers, technology to buy, etc., right? And as a company that's over 50 years old, successful, they tried, like so many companies, to build Gen AI capabilities. I mean, who doesn't, right? Like, boards are asking, what is your Gen AI strategy? And they tried that. Tried it with IT, with cloud providers, and it didn't get there anywhere. We think it's because the approach of building technology for the sake of technology doesn't really work. The idea behind teaming up behind an outcome with diversity of skill set is to be able to focus on the customer problem or the employee problem that is being solved. And that's what we did. So we got started and built a prototype. Before we go into making hundreds of slides on the future of the future, right? Let's just see what is the biggest problem happening right now. The biggest problem happening right now with this company, and I'm sure you can imagine many companies that have this issue, which is that if you don't know exactly how to use the system, you don't know how to gather the data that you need. You have a question, and yet you have to read reports. I don't want to read reports. I want the answer to my question. And then I want to ask more questions. And the easier you make it for me to ask questions, the more intelligent my decisions can be. So we put that together. In 30 hours, there was a working prototype. It was a small A-team, basically 2.5 people, from product to engineering, that came on this. They're obviously, A-teamers are so excited to work on these problems because these are things that we experience on a daily basis, and it's so frustrating. But the magic actually wasn't the prototype. The magic was seeing in the room on Zoom, mind you, the spark in people's eyes, not technical leaders that were excited about the technology and the architecture diagrams, but the business leaders on the research side that suddenly realize how easy it is to build things today. So that acceleration can be actually kind of amazing if we know how to harness it. If we're on top of the questions that need to be asked and need to be discussed. Because that acceleration means that now we are gaining superpowers in some way. And you can tell these very senior executives are like, oh, that could change how we do our own research. Because instead of having this very structured top-down approach of like, here's what we should research and do this and deploy our thousands of analysts to do calls, we could actually look at the questions that people are asking and provide answers to what people want to know. Or we could actually now have people that are not super trained on how to use the tool across our customers' organizations to ask questions to the data they're already paying for. Great. Now we could actually bring together answers from this structured information, this unstructured information, and so on and so forth. So now the leaders that are developing the product and the technology do not come from, hey, let's do a big digital transformation multi-year project. It comes from, let's start with a 30-hour prototype, and we can very quickly see how those components can change everything we do. And now that's going into the main user experience and website of the company, and so on. Our guess is this company and many more are gonna, instead of producing reports, they're gonna be answering pivotal questions in the millions for so many users out there in a way that actually moves things forward. Now, this is exciting. Like, we love being in those rooms, but we've also been in many rooms where we realize, okay, we're doing it wrong. And I think that issue of building technology for technology is kind of the root problem. We've seen that a lot, but what we also learn, particularly from recent events, as we're talking about the crazy saga at OpenAI, is that it's not really just about technology. We're tackling the Gen AI world, if you will, quite differently than we used to tackle software before. And I want to share with you the framework that after working with many of our architects, our AI guild, and the companies that we work with, that we came up with that we find to be very helpful in layering and kind of setting expectation properly, where we're not just building things in the lab, but we're actually focusing on solving key problems of the organization and just trying to provide a different approach to them. The first is to focus, the first horizon that we see is workflow efficiency and productivity. We actually are starting to notice that perhaps one of the key drivers of Gen AI adoption in the corporate world might be the CFO. Because there are many budgets that are staying flat next year, and companies that are saying, okay, like, I don't care what you do, find a way to create efficiencies. Okay. That's actually a very good foray into getting acclimated with what utilizing technology such as Gen AI can do in your existing workflows. So it's not about building, hey, here's a new tool, should try to use it. It's what are we doing today that is not working well enough or fast enough? So that instead of firing Joe, because we can get an AI MC, we can say, okay, how can we remove the drudgery, the mundane task that Joe is doing so that Joe and his team can spend more time on actually solving user problems. And in fact, we're seeing this automation, when you think about it, it's going to happen so much faster. It's been happening for a while, but it's going to be much faster. But what does it mean? it really means that instead of focusing on solving machine problems, we're going to be able to solve user problems. And that's a big shift. And it means that we can then go to customer experience. There's going to be an expectation, not just an ability, to level up customer experience, particularly in a digital realm, in a very significant way. If we take a hard look at the way software is going right now, like think about the things, the software you're using on a daily basis, in many cases, they're quite frustrating to use. I mean, we're in 2023 and we still have to say multiple times a day, yeah, this is me, like log me in, right? Or we have to figure out how the forms work and whatever, and it's like understanding the structure of something instead of having software and hardware that works for us, right? We certainly have that in the corporate world, but I think quite broadly. And the thing is that because of Chat GPT and many other tools that anyone can use, accessibility is really the big thing here. We tend to expect that, so that if you don't make the leap forward in customer experience, customers will then choose a competitor, even if they don't provide as much value as you, simply because that's what we expect things to work for us. And we can very easily see how starting to put things together for the sake of efficiency and putting data in a way that is friendly from an experience standpoint to users very, very often open up all these business opportunities and innovation opportunities that we don't recommend to necessarily start with. It's like, hey, what is the cool stuff we can do with Gen AI? No. You've built better efficiencies in setting up the systems. You leveled up digital experience for your customers. And now you're in a very, very good shape to go and innovate on new business models and new product innovation, essentially. And following this kind of thinking about those horizons, we find to be a recipe for success and one that will be transformative for many industries that are currently undergoing this transformation and should be able to publish results in a matter of weeks or months. So stay tuned on those. What it also requires, though, more than technology, is a change in mindset. In a way, we're all startups again. And by all, I really mean all. Like, think about some of the biggest companies on the planet that have been around for decades now, right? The homepage on Google generates hundreds of billions of dollars, right? You don't want to mess with that. And yet they are messing with that. And they're putting a component of generative AI right on that homepage that literally says, this is experimental, watch out for the results. That's the homepage of Google. That's crazy. And Bing does the same thing, actually by default. When you install a new computer, you get that stuff in there, and they literally tell you this is a beta product. They look like a startup that says, like, watch out for this. This is not ready for prime time just yet. So if Google and Microsoft are doing it, we're all gaining this mindset of we're a startup again. We're early stage again. We need to experiment. The thing here is that you can't sit down, even with that nice framework, and come up with all the ideas for what you should be doing and a multi-year Gen AI roadmap. Because we're still at a stage where building up ROI cases for these things is still tricky and early. Figuring out exactly the limitation of technology is very early as well. And this ecosystem, as we talked about, is not only in development and in early stages, but it's moving so fast that the only thing that we know for sure is that tomorrow will be different, and the day after, and the day after. And it's going to be more and more of that. Which is why the previous approach of, hey, let's bring in a big software and have armies of IT people to integrate that and somehow make it work with our organization, are kind of behind us. Because that's what the world now looks like. A lot of building blocks that are multiplying, but also themselves are upgrading and changing at the speed of light. I mean, think about the pace to go from version 3 to 3.5 to 4, and every one of those versions is a new revolution of things that can be done. So much so that, working with the authors of some of this LLM infrastructure, and you ask them, like, okay, what is the best use case for this? No one knows yet. It will come from experimentation. So we need different operating models. And that brings a lot of questions on the way we organize ourselves from a professional standpoint, from a workforce standpoint, from an operating model standpoint, where we find that, we think often proprietary data, that's the starting point, great. That's true. But then you have to understand risks, new types of risks that we didn't know about. How can you hack, Gen AI powered interface? New cybersecurity risk as well. Regulatory risk, of course, we'll discuss that more later. But also how you build not just the infrastructure and the automation for the machines, but how you solve user problem, turns out, present us the opportunity to structure things where at the middle, you have the building blocks, you have the Legos. These Legos will change constantly. They're going to become cheaper and faster. Great. Then on top of this, you've got the learnings, and that is soon to become many companies' IP, the ones that are moving fast. Think about you integrating whatever LLM it may be, and you having this interface that asks users to rate the quality of the answer. Even this input of thumbs up, thumbs down, that's learning that is proprietary and extremely valuable, that basically tailors the learnings, that layer of intelligence that is proprietary to your assets, to your value add. And on top of that, the biggest portion then becomes building the product that actually solves user problems. And to solve this type of thing, it's not the army that we showed before of IT people. It's about small teams that can deliver exponential impact, that bring the diversity of skill set required to solve actual user problems, that bring together technical capabilities with product capabilities, with go-to-market capabilities, with legal capabilities around an actual business outcome. And that means that provide us a new kind of world where everyone who is leading the charge on a particular outcome that they want to drive forward team up with the people that can bring you this multidisciplinary approach, because now you can build and it's easy. You're going to get that spark on the eye that we see in those meetings that make it all worth it. And in fact, it has profound changes on how we work. We just run this analysis on a lot of our developers and A-teamers, because we realize that this is a golden era, if you will, for developers. Because it's less about coding or whatever commoditized part of your work may be. That thing is kind of gone. But it is about building products, solutions, thinking about the customer, thinking about the employee. This whole new work stream of technology now about increasing productivity for organizations. Even less tolerance now to be bogged down by things that could be leveraged by machines, so that we can focus on the value add. So we believe that we're entering the era of super builders, where the people that can foster this type of models, instead of going and repeating the mistakes of the past, where we realize that it's not just about technology, it's about teaming up with the people that bring the different skill set required to solve problems for our customer and our employees in ways that we could have never done before. So thank you for being here to explore that with us, and excited to learn more as you do for the rest of the day. Thank you so much.